So recently at the Big Ten Media Days, it was basically discussed that Wisconsin was the projected winner of the Big Ten West Division. And despite the fact that there are times where I obviously disagree with the media, along with everyone else, I am fully behind this. And in today's video, I'm going to explain a little bit as to why, along with walking through their schedule and talking a little bit about last year. But before we get into it all, I just want to say thank you, Paul Chryst, for explaining to all of us, and I mean every college football fan, that it is important to score more points than your opponent. And aside from the sarcasm that I just said, I seriously do think this guy is a great coach. I mean, I don't think he's the greatest public speaker, and he doesn't really show his intensity, but I do think he obviously has intensity and passion for this sport. And as a Michigan fan, I am a huge fan and believer in Paul Chryst and what he's doing in Wisconsin. And despite maybe him not getting back to that good old 13-1 season in 2017, the increased recruitment, the just how Jonathan Taylor performed so well in consistent seasons, the fact that he can reach the Big Ten championship game with guys like Jack Cohn and Alex Hornibrook at quarterback, and now he finally has, I believe, in my opinion, the most talented, most potential in a quarterback in Graham Mertz. Wisconsin may finally be able to take that next step. It's very rare for a coach to be able to take a next step so late, but I think in this case, it's possible that he could take this step even this year, and I'm just going to walk you through why. So to start off, let's talk about the 2020 Wisconsin Badgers, and mainly talk about their offensive and defensive performance. We're going to kind of leave the schedule out of it mostly, except for one thing. Last year, Wisconsin struggled against top 25 opponents, and notably teams with great defenses. Indiana, Iowa, and Northwestern were the only three losses that Wisconsin had. Wisconsin beat Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan, and Wake Forest. And all of those wins, besides the Minnesota one, toward the end of the game, they came pretty easily, in all honesty. They had a 3-3 conference record, and really, at best, they were a fringe top 25 team. They had a top 10 scoring defense, and their defense was, in all honesty, amazing. They only allowed 203 passing yards a game, and they allowed less than 100 rushing yards a game, allowing less than 300 total offensive yards a game, about only 60 plays, and really, in all honesty, only allowing 5 yards per play. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Their really only weakness was in the fact that their offense did produce a decent amount of turnovers, and just the lack of offensive production all around, especially with Graham Mertz, was the main reason this Wisconsin team fell short. Their defense, keep in mind, just looking at their defense with the talent they have, and by talent I mean the lack thereof of 5 stars and 4 stars alike, this defense is obviously conference championship playoff level material. And this is reason number one as to why Wisconsin will win the Big Ten West, and in my opinion go undefeated in doing so. They return 82% of their defensive production. They return 82% production of a defense that only allowed 17.4 points per game. Keep in mind the 35th strength of schedule, which I'd say is pretty standard for a West team. And again, 82% returning production for a defense that allowed less than basically only 300 yards exactly per game. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And especially keeping the less than 100 yards a game in rush offense that the defense allowed is critical against teams like Penn State and Michigan next year. Penn State, historically great at producing running backs. You've had Saquon Barkley, I believe Miles Sanders. And then Michigan, you have possibly one of the best running back rooms next year. And this rush defense is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. And the pass defense was amazing too. The only reason, again, that Wisconsin didn't do well last year is they could only muster 181 pass yards a game on offense, which is absolutely atrocious. And combine that with the 164.6 yards a game of rushing on offense, that isn't a really good total. Only 345 yards per game on offense. And keep in mind, only 25 points a game. This offense doesn't work in the modern era. Maybe 2 decades ago it would work. I know that the 1997 Michigan Wolverines did not have a high-scoring offense at all. They still went undefeated. That isn't possible anymore. So Wisconsin has to really step it up on offense, and especially Graham Mertz, in order to win the Big Ten West. And here's reason number 2 as to why they will win the Big Ten West. Graham Mertz will improve. He'll improve. And at the Big Ten Media Days, Paul Chryst did mention that when asked a question about Graham Mertz and how he did so well early in the year against teams like Illinois and Michigan, and then really faltered when it came to Northwestern, Iowa, and who's the other? Iowa. Northwestern, Iowa, and when it came to those teams, he was asked why he faltered, and Paul Chryst did admit that he faltered, and in the end just plainly said Mertz knows that he has to improve, and he's aware enough to look at the areas he needs to improve at specifically. Paul Chryst was basically saying that Graham Mertz knows the specific areas he needs to improve at, and that is important, especially with a full off season to work with. And Wisconsin's other loss, before I forget, was Indiana. I don't feel comfortable forgetting that third loss. But that's reason number 2. Mertz will improve. And Mertz improving and getting those passing yards up, the passing touchdowns per game, improving that touchdown interception ratio, which was around 2-1 and only a 125 quarterback rating. Keep in mind, I believe Mertz was a redshirt freshman when doing this, only year 2, taking on the starting job because Jack Cohn was injured, and with Jack Cohn transferring away and Jack Cohn was being a semi-solid quarterback, that just shows me the potential that Mertz has. I think it's the best potential that we've seen in a Wisconsin quarterback in a while. He has the potential to be blue chip, but he has to improve. And I think he will, and that's reason number 2 as to why Wisconsin will win the West and potentially, and for sure in my opinion, go undefeated. And you also have key players, and this is going back to the defense too, Jack Sanborn being named to the Butkus Award preseason watch list. You have players like him all around on the defense too. So the offense, relating back to that, the offense doesn't even have to be elite for Wisconsin to go undefeated in their schedule, in my opinion, or to reach the championship game. But we'll get to winning the championship game a little bit later. And reason number 3 is, and this is the final reason in my opinion, it's that their running game will be back to what it always is. You don't really have a Jonathan Taylor here. You have Jalen Berger, who was injured in spring. But keep in mind, just looking at the stats here, running for an average of 5 yards a carry and 301 yards, that's a good start. COVID kind of exempted everyone from their failures in 2020, despite the fact that I don't really buy into that whole thing. And some teams had better excuses than others. But Wisconsin's going to have a far more competent run game next year. They return a great amount on the offensive line, so that will improve. And really just, again, 84% returning production on offense. this team is bound to improve on offense, at least back to normal, to what it normally is at Wisconsin, which isn't great, but it's far from bad. It's okay to good on offense combined with a great defense. And that's the third reason as to why I think Wisconsin will win the Big Ten West. But now to take a little dive into their schedule. Wisconsin in 2021 opens up the season, and I've discussed this in my another Big Ten prediction video for the subscribers currently watching. They open up against Penn State, and after that they host Eastern Michigan. Then they travel to Soldier Field for a neutral site face-off against Notre Dame before returning home to face Michigan. They then play at Illinois, host Army, play at Purdue, host Iowa, at Rutgers, host Northwestern and Nebraska, then play at Minnesota. And according to me and the teams on this list, really all of Wisconsin's potentially top 25 opponents, and I see Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, and Minnesota. Those are their 5 best teams on their schedule. You look at it, and the toughest one, in my opinion, Iowa, is at home. The second toughest, which I think will be Minnesota, is away. But keep in mind that's a rivalry game that Wisconsin and Christ have dominated. The third toughest team, which is really a toss-up between Michigan, Notre Dame, and Penn State. They all could be. I'm really high on Minnesota because of their returning production, because of Muhammad Ibrahim and that offensive line returning a lot, and their defense, and Tanner Morgan coming back as quarterback. I'm really high on Minnesota. But Michigan, Notre Dame, and Penn State will be tough as well, and they will be top 25 to fringe top 25 teams, most likely, though I don't think either will really be top 15. But Michigan and Penn State are at home, and it's hard to lose it at home if you're Wisconsin. That is a rare occurrence that Wisconsin loses in a full Camp Randall Stadium. And the Notre Dame neutral site game, Notre Dame is 123rd in the country for returning production. And Notre Dame has done very well under Brian Kelly in recent years, but I look at the 123rd returning production, and I look at how Wisconsin's obviously going to be motivated to do well after a disappointing campaign. Notre Dame is going to draw. They might have one of their rare seasons since 2017 where they don't even get 10 wins. I think at most this team will go 10-3 at Notre Dame. Maybe 11-2. I don't think they make the playoffs. They'll blow their playoff chances before their last game of the season, in my opinion. So looking at all of that, Wisconsin's schedule aligns to be very favorable toward them. And Wisconsin's solid defense, no team on this list besides, maybe Penn State, most likely Notre Dame, and even Notre Dame last season, their defense was their strong point. There's no team on this list. Again, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Minnesota is probably the most offensively starred team next year. Return a great amount of the offensive line and your star running back and a quarterback who did very well in 2019. There's no team on here who is the antithesis to Wisconsin and runs an awesome offense without much defense. There just isn't. There really isn't here. And you could make a case that maybe Purdue is going to have a better offense next year, but Purdue hasn't had very high scoring offenses in its history under Jeff Brom either. So I look at the schedule here, and Wisconsin's returning defensive production and offensive production, granted the fact that I believe Mertz will improve and that the running back room and offensive line will improve close to exponentially, and things will get back to normal here. All your hard opponents, really, besides Minnesota, are at home. They're at home, and that is a huge advantage, as Camp Randall is known to greatly assist its Badgers to victory. it's very hard to lose in Camp Randall if you are Wisconsin. Very hard to do. So again, I think 12-0 is a great possibility here. That's what I'm predicting. Again, your reasons as to why Wisconsin will win the Big Ten West are you return so much production on defense that was a top 10 scoring defense and only allowed 300 yards total per game. You also have the fact that Mertz will definitely improve. Mertz, I don't think, will get worse. I don't think he'll pull an Alex Hornibrook from 2017 to 18 and regress in his final year in the school. Like, I just don't think that'll happen. Again, that's partially me trusting Paul Chryst and the fact that I think he is a more than competent head coach, and also the fact that Wisconsin's running back room is ripe for improvement. And before I end this video, Wisconsin does have a Clemson transfer at running back. I believe his name is Shaz or Shez. I forget the name of him, and that's mainly because in all honesty, I'm not really a Wisconsin fan here, and I do keep tabs on this team, but a transfer name for now is not of the most importance. But he certainly will help depth. I'm looking for Jalen Berger to improve. Berger is, in my opinion, the guy to step up to the job as long as he is healthy and recovers from his injury. Thank you all for watching this video as to why Wisconsin will win the Big Ten West. Tell me your Big Ten West champion predictions in the comments below and who you think will win the Big Ten. My pick is Ohio State. Thank you all for watching. Again, like, subscribe, comment below, and hit that notification bell so you can watch more of my videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.